Alaska is big. So big that a wide variety of landscapes and climates exist within its borders. We were excited to be back in Alaska and explore a completely different area than on our first visit. The first time we visited Alaska on this trip, we explored the northern regions, but now we were heading for the coast, and first up is Valdez. The drive down to Valdez on the Richardson Highway turned out to be a magnificent one, and it climbs to a high elevation in Thompson Pass. This highway once again follows the Alaska Pipeline as its southern terminus is in Valdez. Besides being a port for oil exports, Valdez is an active freight and fishing harbor. The town is also a popular out-of-the-way tourist destination and has a few popular restaurants and bars.
That's a big fish.
We were not surprised to see the giant halibut catches, marine life, and eagles here, but one common animal here sure stood out: the rabbit. Valdez has an abundance of wild bunnies that have been hanging around the town for so long that nobody really remembers how they got there. Some people find them a pest, while others and the visitors really seem to enjoy watching them. We heard some local residents feed them through the winter to help keep them going, but we weren't here for the rabbits. We came to do some fishing, and not by ourselves.
Today we are in Valdez, Alaska. It is early in the morning and we have met up with some guys from Dometic who are gonna go fishing with us. We are going for some salmon today.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Good morning.
Josh.
How are you?
Sorry, what's your name?
Caitlin.
Caitlin, how are you doing, Caitlin?
What was
yours? Josh.
Josh. Nice to meet you.
With our friends from Dometic, Stefan, Trey, Larry, and Gopi, we headed out with our captain Josh to go after coho or silver salmon. We ran about an hour out, and as quickly as we had lines in the water, we started to reel in fish. Pink salmon at first on the surface, but soon our deep downriggers started to pick up the silvers.
Who's gonna run the dance?
Oh yeah.
There you go, run the fish.
Hold up.
And, yeah, we got a dance going on.
Captain Josh had us all working, and at times it was quite a dance to manage the lines, bait, net, and steering the boat, all while bringing in multiple fish. Fishing is so good here in Alaska that when you have a skilled guide, it's not hard to fill your daily quota of fish. We all fished until we were near our quotas, then switched to bottom fishing for rockfish. Just like the salmon, these fish were jumping in the boat, and within half an hour, we again neared our daily quotas.
Next. And we go up on the port on the starboard side. He doesn't.
Whoa!
Or maybe it will.
I don't know.
I guess.
It is a
It's a nice black bass.
bass.
Beautiful.
Woo!
Yeah, go ahead and net that so you don't lose it.
You $5. You can just have a putt. There it is. Look at it.
Nice.
Yeah.
With a fish well full, we headed back to port to clean our catch. Between all 6 of us, we ended up with 91 pounds of filleted fish.
22.
Yeah, that won't.
Amazingly, it all fit into our Dometic-powered cooler that travels with us in the backseat of our truck.
46 fish. We caught 23 salmon and 23 rockfish.
We had the fish vacuum sealed, then we set the cooler to freeze, and we'll find out how it performs, keeping our portion of this catch frozen over the next few months traveling back home.
Today was pretty awesome. I've never caught that many fish in my life.
Our next day in Valdez, we awoke to a foggy morning, which we had learned is common for this coastal town. We all drove across the fjord to the Solomon Gulch Fish Hatchery that manages the majority of the pink salmon population in the waters around Valdez. Salmon are amazing and strange creatures that are born in the rivers and streams, but make their way to live in the ocean for a few years before making the trek back to where they were born to spawn. This hatchery uses this behavior to ranch the salmon in the ocean. Millions of salmon are hatched in this compound, then released to the ocean where they mature. After a few years, they return to this exact same spot, where some spawn and the others are harvested by fishing vessels for sale. Spawning salmon go through an incredible change of body shape and color during spawning, and will protect their nests without eating until death. It was strange to watch this massive fish trying so desperately, all to cram into the small stream, or in this case, the hatchery fish ladder. Bears and eagles are common here, as the fish are such an easy catch, but all we saw were the thousands of seagulls. Across the road, someone spotted bright red and orange berries, and upon inspection, they turned out to be salmon berries. We had a blast gorging ourselves on these colorful and sometimes enormous berries.
Take a picture of
Trey, you gotta see this!
Yeah.
salmon berries.
Just your hand.
Oh my god.
It looks like candy.
It does. It looks phony.
Yeah, that does not look real. It is
It's like so bursting.
Like this was the mother-in-law. Yeah.
We then drove up into Thompson Pass and stopped at the waterfalls of the beautiful Keystone Canyon along the way. Afterward, we found a spot for a picnic and made some fish tacos from our recent catch. Here we had to say goodbye to our friends as they had to head out, but we continued on up to the Worthington Glacier.
This is Worthington Glacier, just outside Valdez. Let's go see what kind of adventure we can have on this.
While up at the glacier, we had talked to a local guide who told us about a guided hike he takes people on, and we just had to do it.
Oh, I see it.
What do you think?
Well, this is gonna be interesting. I've never done this before.
One trick to this hike is we needed to traverse the swift, cold glacial runoff stream. Luckily, we had brought our climbing gear with us. Once across, we scrambled up the steep, slippery rocks, and finally came face to face with this slowly moving wall of blue ice.
Touching a glacier! Oh my god! It's so blue! Like the color of my shirt.
You're camouflage.
No,
You're wearing glacier
Can't
camouflage.
see me.
Our last night in Valdez, we spent boondocking down near the Valdez Glacier, and in the morning, Kate decided to go for a paddle amongst the icebergs. Paddling amongst the bergs like this does need to be done with care, as many submerged ice obstacles and the Calvin Glacier in the distance can pose dangers.
Okay.
After saying goodbye to Valdez, we drove out on Highway 10 to Chitina, and then took the McCarthy Road deep into the Wrangell St. Elias National Park to visit McCarthy and Kennecott. After the pavement ran out in Chitina, the road turned out to be very rough and slow, but had some very interesting history, as it was originally the railroad that ran out to the Kennecott mine, and some of the original trestles still remain alongside the road. At the end of the road, you cannot drive to McCarthy, but you can take a shuttle, walk, or bike.
We are right outside the town of McCarthy. It was a 60+ mile drive on some rough dirt road. And as you can see from the cars in the parking lot, pretty much any car can do it. It's just, you know, a long, bumpy ride. But we made it, and this is a little bit further down the road is as far as you can go. We're about half mile from that point. Then you have to take a footbridge over this stream, and then you get to the town of McCarthy, and then you can take about 4.5 miles up to Kennecott Mine, which is a huge copper mine in this region. So we're gonna go check it out on our bikes, and we're excited to see what this place has to offer.
We biked the 5 miles up the rough ATV trail instead of taking the road, and got to the Kennecott mine just before it was closing. This remote mine is being restored and operated by the National Park Service, and you can explore on your own or take a guided tour. This facility mined copper from the high elevations around the area and processed much of the rock right on site. This mine is named for the Kennecott Glacier that flows below it, and was operated from 1905 to 1938. It was located here due to the high yield of ore, which at its time of discovery was the richest known concentration of copper in the world. The mine produced over 1 billion pounds of copper, and made over $100 million in profit during its operation. However, construction and operating conditions here were very challenging due to its extremely remote location. We had a perfect day, and the mountains and massive glaciers surrounding this mine were just incredible. We took the road back down, which was easy as it was all downhill, and briefly explored the town of McCarthy before heading back. This town was described to us as the best example of what an old Alaskan town looked like, and was originally the company town that supported the mine. When the mine was closed, the town was mostly abandoned, but in the 70s, people started to move back during the boom of the Alaska pipeline construction. This town is off the grid, but does have a store and a few restaurants. McCarthy is located within the boundaries of Wrangell St. Elias, the largest national park in the US. This makes it a hub for backcountry activities. The place had a base camp-like feel to us, full of adventurers, guides, and those looking to live far from the masses, yet still retain a sense of community. This leg of our journey encompassed so many quintessential Alaskan adventures: salmon fishing, getting up close with glaciers, and learning historic tales of grit and endurance in these remote and wild lands. We were so excited to be heading next to the famous Kenai Peninsula, where we would continue to explore the rugged coastline, and even more truly Alaskan experiences awaited.